Welcome to Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda. Yesterday we were talking about slavery, and we talked about that passage in Ephesians where Paul gives instructions both to slaves and to masters. Now, the masters being those who were not slave owners, but who had to supervise slaves in their employment. And Paul was saying that whether you were a slave or whether you were a master who supervised slaves as part of your job, you still had to show forth the beauty and the spirit of Jesus Christ, and that would win other people over and help win them to the Lord. That God can use us even in the most unfair and unjust situations. Now, I explained carefully how most of the masters in the Roman Empire were not slave owners. But of course, some were slave owners, and there were slave owners who became Christians. And we actually have a book in the Bible that addresses that fact. It's a very short book. It's the book of Philemon, just before the book of Hebrews. And it's only 25 verses long. Now, the Americans call it Philemon, but Greek, phileo means to love. It's Philemon would be a more accurate pronunciation of how it would have been said in the first century. But anyway, here's the deal. Philemon was a slave owner, and one of his slaves, Onesimus, had run away. And a runaway slave, by Roman law, had to be tortured and put to death, because the entire Roman economic system was built on slavery. And if slaves were allowed to run away, then the empire would fall apart. Really, that's how they saw it. And so it was actually a legal requirement. If the owner did not kill his runaway slave when he was captured, then the owner was liable for prosecution and serious penalties. And so here's Paul, has this Onesimus who has now come to Jesus and explains to Paul that he's a runaway slave. And it turns out that the master he's run away from, Philemon, is also a Christian. And so Paul takes an opportunity to address the evil of slavery. And what he does, he asks Onesimus to go back to Philemon. But Paul writes to Philemon and says, you know what? When you receive this guy back, not only are you not to torture him or to kill him, but he also says this. He says, now, verse 15, perhaps the reason he was separated from you for a little while was that you might have him back for good. Listen to this. No longer as a slave, but better than a slave, as a dear brother. He is very dear to me, but even dearer to you, both as a man and as a brother in the Lord. So if you consider me a partner, welcome him as you would welcome me. And if he has done you any wrong or owes you anything, charge it to me. I, Paul, am writing this with my own hand. I will pay it back, not to mention that you owe me your very self, because Paul had led Philemon to faith in Christ. So here we have this beautiful picture where Philemon is to receive Onesimus back. Not only is he not to torture him or kill him, even though Philemon's having to break the Roman law now to do that, but he's got to receive him back no longer as a slave, but as a brother and as a friend. And here we see Paul striking at the very root of this system of slavery. And this idea that the slave is our brother. It's that if those words sound familiar, that you're thinking of the Christmas carol, O Holy Night, that says the slave is my brother. It was used as an abolitionist song against slavery. But this very idea that Onesimus is not just a thing, he's not just a possession, he's a man made in God's image, and he's a Christian. Now he's received Jesus, he's a Christian brother to Philemon. Paul strikes at the very heart of slavery. And this teaches us something for today, and it's this: that we can never afford to look down on somebody else and think that they are there to serve us. Instead, we need to treat them with respect. One of the things that most upsets me is when I see Christians in a situation perhaps where they're being served by somebody else. It might be by they're in a restaurant and a waiter is bringing them their food, and they treat that person as if they are unimportant or a nobody. That really gets my goat, because I believe that as Christians, we need to be particularly concerned with those who are temporarily in a place of service or whatever because of their jobs. We need to treat them with added respect and civility if we truly believe that we are made in God's image. I pray that God today will give you opportunities for you to share with people of all stations and places in life, and to realize that we are together. We are made in the image of God. And you know what? When you show people that respect, they can respond to that, and they can truly then begin to listen to the message that you've got about the saving love of Jesus Christ. May God bless you this day, and please join us again next time for another Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda.